What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Thursday edition of the NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris, until my internet will probably drop off at some point, and I'll reconnect and be fine. But for now, here I am. Joining me, as always, Swim Cliffy. How you doing on this Thursday?
Doing all not too bad. I think I'm doing a little bit better than Pittsburgh Penguin fans are doing right now. That was a pretty bad trade on their part last night. Yeah, it's just one of those, we talked about it yesterday. It's just one of those weeks in the NHL where there is a ton going on, players moving all over the place. Like you mentioned just before we came on the air, Jonathan Quick was traded for the second time this week. He's on his way to Las Vegas. Thankfully, they're not on the slate tonight, so we don't have to worry about that. But, yeah, that's just kind of the nature of this week. There's going to be players going all over the place. Lots of spots opening up. I'm sure, I haven't heard of 1/3 of the Chicago Blackhawks roster. They're just trading everybody. It's just kind of the way it is. But it also signals kind of like the real crunch time in the NHL. Like there's a quarter of the season left, a lot less for some teams. Playoff races are starting to get very tight. It's that fun time in the NHL where you're getting away from that all-star game time where you're 50 games in. Some teams are starting to quit. Boston's like 20 points ahead of everybody else. We're starting to get into that crunch time, which is one of my favorite times of the year. And just in sports in general, right? We got March Madness this month. We got baseball coming back. We got NBA gearing up for their own playoffs. It's just a really good time to be a sports fan.
Yeah, it is a fun time to be a sports fan. On the other end, it is a little bit tough these next few days for DFS purposes. People moving, teams, players not in the player pool, players getting scratched. It's been a bit NBA-ish, we could say, the past few days, but we've navigated it pretty well. I don't think there's been a late scratch. There's just been a couple players who haven't been in the pool. We'll knock some wood and hope that remains the case. We have a 10-gamer here tonight. I see I'm a little bit frozen. Am I going to come back? Here I am. I'm good. Before we get into this slate, remember we have a brand new Odd Shopper show debuting. It's called The Odd Shop. It's every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. If you like betting, Laffy, Ben, Greg, Eric, Atan, that's former Iowa State University caddy, Eric Lindquist, and all the regular guys as they break down the night's best bets using premium Odd Shopper tools and data. That's exclusively on the Odd Shopper channel, so make sure to check that out. Atan and Laffy. There it is. I couldn't. My brain literally just shut off. I know how to pronounce his name. I knew who was on the show, and then I wanted to say Laffy, but it's not. Like Jake Harry. It's Jake Hari. You know what I mean? Me and names, we have issues. But let's get into this slate. We got a big 10-gamer. Got some big old totals here. We have 3 Yeah, we have 3 home totals at 4 right now. Let's try to navigate through it, and let's start with the Buffalo Sabres and Boston Bruins, shall we? The Buffalo Sabres with a 2.6 total heading into Boston. The Bruins have a 4 total. Eric Comrie is probable. Jeremy Swayman is confirmed. Bruins made a trade today. They traded for Tyler Bertuzzi. I mean, if he plays tonight, he'll accrue points since the Red Wings are on this slate. I doubt he'll get to Boston in time, but that's something to monitor. David Pastrnak also signed a monster extension today. They put Hall and someone else on the IR. Oh, Nick Foligno. So I'm not really sure what the bottom 6 is going to look like tonight. The top 6 is remaining the same. This is a good matchup for the top 6 here. I think like the Marchand, Bergeron, DeBrusque line, perfectly fine here. Not getting a ton of ownership. Pasternak's getting the most ownership here. It's because his price has come down. He was like at 9,600 at times. 8,800 here tonight. This is a very good matchup, very good power play matchup. The Pastrnak line is going to avoid that Tage Thompson line. I kind of prefer the Pastrnak line, but I understand if you want to go to Boston 1 just because the ownership's better. They're fully correlated. On the Buffalo side, even with Swayman in that, I just don't think there's going to be much for me in 1 to 3. Maybe in MME, but I doubt it as well.
Yeah, we're going to have to watch for Bertuzzi for sure to see if he can make it on time. But obviously, him not being in the player pool and Detroit not being on the slate means he won't count points. It's just a matter of whether he takes Pavel Zacha's spot. Oh, that's right.
He's on the slate.
Yeah, that's right. There's the very next game. So it's just a matter of where he slots in, whether he takes Pavel Zacha's spot. Because Taylor Hall getting injured and that spot, that third line left wing spot opening up seems like that's just tailor made for Bertuzzi to slide in right on that third line with Charlie Coyle, right? That was something I was writing about the trade for season long fantasy hockey this morning, and it was something that seemed pretty obvious is that Tyler Bertuzzi's going from the top line, top power play in Detroit to it's got to be the third line in Boston and the second power play unit. So he's not really going to be a factor in DFS, I don't think, one way or another, unless he's on the Krejci Pastrnak line. So I wouldn't worry about Bertuzzi too much. I have no interest in Buffalo here. Jeremy Swayman in net always changes things for me because he's clearly having a much worse season than Linus Ullmark. Ullmark's at the point where he's like basically saving Boston nearly like a goal every game and a half, or like even a little bit better. Like he's having a pretty unreal year. Swayman's nowhere close. But it's still just a brutal matchup. Like I was looking at Boston's numbers. Like DeBrusque hasn't returned. It hasn't been that long since he came back from that leg injury, but they're at 2.0 expected goals against since DeBrusque came back. That top line is, and 1.1 actual goals against. Like that's the matchup Tage Thompson's getting. So out on Thompson. Cousins and Middlestat are actually generating quite a bit of offense, which is something that surprised me because Casey Middlestat is not really a good offensive player. But they're at 3.5 expected goals for per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. That Boston second line's really not been that great defensively. 2.8 expected goals against in the month of February. I think they can be had, but Cousins is still fairly expensive. So even if you do Cousins, like a Cousins Middlestat, you probably need at least 2 goals from them. And that feels like a lot against Boston. But if anything, it would be Cousins Middlestat that I would go to because they're getting ice time. Cousins power play unit because of the injuries. Even your apparently. So don't mind them. On the Boston side, like either of the top 2 lines are perfectly fine. I think a power play stack certainly makes a lot of sense here, given how much Buffalo struggles on the penalty kill and has basically all season long. And the Boston power play has been a lot better with Jake DeBrusque there than without him. Like they're up near 14 goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. Like that's like Dallas Stars back in November type efficiency. So, I think if anything on Boston, I would go to the top line, DeBrusque, Bergeron, Marchand. I know people are worried about ice time. But if at the end of the game, if Brad Marchand or Patrice Bergeron finished with like 15 or 16 minutes in ice time, it's because either Boston or Buffalo won by like 4 goals. Like that's what happens. They don't play in blowouts, but they'll play in close games. So it is Boston 1. You know, if you want to take off one of Marchand and Jake DeBrusk to put in Pasternak, I think that's fine. But I think focusing on the power play guys is my target here, and not so much on the value.
Yep, I agree there. Before we move on, we have 2 super chats. We have a $99.99 super chat for Rerun for President. Thank you very much. Says Rerun here, guys. Excuse me. Thank you, Josh and Cliff. I'm going to start calling you Cliff now. Sent you guys a message on Twitter earlier today. You guys played a big role in me cashing. Let's keep it rolling. Always a great job by you guys. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Congratulations to you. You're the one who's clicking in the players. We don't make anyone else's lineups besides ourselves. We both had a very similar lineup last night. Coincidentally, we didn't really talk about who we're playing, but ended up on the wrong Devils line together. So you did better than we did, and congratulations to you.
Yeah, big congrats. That's a real nice hit by you. Thank you very much for the super chat. It's very generous. We're just, any bit of help that we can provide, we're happy to. And like Josh said, you're the one still clicking the players in. So real nice night by you. Hopefully a couple more like that over the balance of the season. And thanks again for that super chat.
Then we have a $4.99 super chat from Wolf Girl. Just because someone wins something tonight. Thank you for the hard work, boys. I'm using every single connect I have in Hollywood, which is none. But we're going to try to get you an ESPN 30 for 30 docuseries on Wolf Girl. So, yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yeah, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. I mean, it's our job to work hard and provide the information and show off the tools that can help people win. But we get paid to do that. But it's still nice to hear that. It's always nice to hear that when people appreciate, some things that you do. And we appreciate you in the Discord as well, because there are certain gems that we can't repeat live on YouTube.
I was about to, but I'll keep it in.
that made us crack up. But thanks a lot for that super chat, and let's go win some money tonight.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next one here. We have the Seattle Kraken with a 3.1 total heading into Detroit. The Red Wings have a 2.9 total. Philip Grubauer probable, Ville Husso confirmed. With Bertuzzi being traded, the top line for the Wings is now Lucas Raymond, Dylan Larkin, Dominique Kubalik. If you've ever watched this show, Cliffy talks about how much Lucas Raymond really just drags that line down. So, I don't have too much interest in that line, despite it being, Seattle with terrible goaltending. And then the second line of Fabry, Perron, and Kopp maybe would interest me a little bit, but they're coming in over-owned, and Andrew Kopp has had an awful season. Maybe you play Perron, Fabry just for the power play there, but 5-on-5, I can't imagine they're going to be very good. And then on the flip side, Seattle, they just aren't generating anything. If you want to do anything, it would probably be Tolvanen. But 4,300, their power plays are awful. So I just don't have much interest in this game.
Yeah, Lucas Raymond, not a really big fan of him. I mean, we talk about it a lot. I don't think I do a good enough job explaining it. So I'm going to bring up something. This isn't through Stokastic. This is a guy's Patreon that I subscribe to, and he hand tracks hundreds and hundreds of NHL games every year. He keeps tracks of dozens of different stats. I'll bring up Lucas Raymond so far this year. Shots per 60, nearly a full standard deviation below average. Scoring chances below average. Scoring chance assists below average. Controlled zone entry percentage below average. Below average everywhere in all the important areas to create offense. That's why he's dragging down Dylan Larkin. It's like that. It's the Office Space meme. What would you say that you do here? All he does is shoot, and he doesn't even shoot that much. He's just a good shooter. It's kind of like Patrick Laine. If Patrick Laine was taking 1.7 shots per game, night in and night out, right? That's the problem with the top line is Raymond's just a black hole. He just parks somewhere basically and waits for Dylan Larkin or Kubalik or Bertuzzi used to be, or Perron or someone to pass him the puck so he can shoot. That type of player is not useful on the top line of the NHL of a team that's hoping to get to the playoffs, even though it seems like they pulled the plug. So it bears out when not just looking at the data that I showed, but in the numbers of the line itself. Kubalik and Raymond and Dylan Larkin are up to 75 minutes together this year at 5-on-5. 2.5 expected goals for per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, which is right around league average, if not slightly below. 1.7 actual goals as they're having a tough time finishing. Those are just really bad offensive numbers. And then if you look at the line without Lucas Raymond, the expected goals for go up by a quarter goal. The actual goals more than double. I don't know what Detroit sees that everybody else, that what Detroit doesn't see that everybody else does. But
young, that's probably it.
Well, great. You're gonna have to pay him a lot more as an RFA than you probably should. Congrats, you played yourself. Anyways, so long story short, I'm out on Detroit 1. I'm not playing Larkin, Kubalik, Raymond here tonight. Like, I'm not that worried about the matchup coming in, but their top 2 percentage is sitting at 1.7%, which I think goes to show just how much this isn't a very good line offensively, even though it's not a bad matchup. You went over Kopp and Fabry. Like, I dropped their numbers in the Discord earlier today. Like, they're not even NHL caliber. They're AHL caliber. So, no, I'm out on that. Like, Robbie Fabry has 9 shots in his last 10 games. I think I could do that playing 17 minutes a game in the NHL. Like, I don't know what's going on with this team. So you dip down to the third line, and then all of a sudden you're getting to, like, your Philip Zadinas and your Pia Suitors. And so I'm with you. Like, not much for me from Detroit. Like, yeah, if you want to one-off a Perron, one-off Dylan Larkin, those things are always fine. I'm not full stacking. The only thing I would consider full stacking on the other side is that McCann line, because they could see a fair bit of Dylan Larkin line here tonight. And, like, Raymond's, like, surprised he's dragging their defensive numbers straight to hell with him. So I think that could be a fine matchup for Seattle 1. Their offensive numbers have been dipping a little bit of late, but they do have 2 out of 3 guys on the top power play unit. We just watched Ottawa torch this Red Wings power play, 2 nights in a row, or penalty kill 2 nights in a row. So, I don't mind, a McCann, Beniers, Eberle, something like that, a 2-man stack, but I don't know if I'm full 3-man stacking either.
Yeah, like that line just hasn't been generating. If they've been shooting the puck, like, I'd be more like, I'm fine with the 2-man of, like, McCann, Eberle. Like, Eberle is a good play driver. I think he can take advantage of this line. McCann's been shooting the puck. Like, Beniers, he's a rookie and maybe he wins the Calder, but, like, he goes through these, like, long dry spells, which you expect from a rookie. You can't expect a rookie to have, like, a point per game season on the top line. He's having a very good season, but he's kind of stuck in one of those lulls. This is a good matchup. He might come out of it, but, like, if you are, I think McCann, Eberle, or just even one-off one of those guys, like a James McCann or an Eberle, Tolvanen, Bjorkström. Like, I just have no desire to full stack Seattle and pick wrong again.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing that I want to mention about our top stacks tool is that that McCann line is what, 14.7? I think 14.4.
Yeah.
With 14,400, I'll bring up top stacks real quick. That Detroit line that we just talked about was 14K. They both had the same top 2 probability, 1.7%. The Detroit line's coming in with twice as much ownership. Still low, but twice as much ownership. So that's kind of why I would play Seattle, is like, I think that's the 1% line where you can 2-man stack, and it could be really beneficial. But yeah, like, I'm not super gung-ho about playing them. I haven't made my lineup yet, but, like, they're not at the top of my priority list, but I don't think it's that bad of a matchup. I think the lineups and the matchups are fine.
I just wish they had a better power play unit, because if they did, I'd be way more interested. Their power plays have just been absolute trash.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Nashville Predators with a 2.9 total heading into Florida. The Panthers have a 3.9 total. Kevin Lankinen is confirmed. Sergei Bobrovsky is probable. Predators traded Mikael Granlund for a second-round pick. Great for Nashville. Gives someone a chance to get into the lineup who's probably better than Granlund. Like, it's not hyperbole to say that Granlund is one of the worst forwards in the NHL. He's still in the NHL, obviously. He has name value.
I mean, one thing I wonder is about miscasting him, right? It's kind of like that Tyler Bozak problem back in Toronto. It was like Tyler Bozak playing 20 minutes a night on the top line for the Maple Leafs. That was a very bad idea. Tyler Bozak playing 13 or 14 minutes as a third-line center / winger for the Blues, that was fine. So, like, maybe Granlund could be fine in a third-line role playing 13 or 14 minutes a night. I don't know, man. That Pittsburgh bottom six has been terrible all season. I wouldn't want to bank on them turning around his season.
Carter Granlund, baby.
Yeah, I think he can be useful in a better role. I don't think Jeff Carter's going to help him make him useful, but I mean, I guess we're going to find out over the next 20 games.
Yeah. I don't have too much interest in Nashville tonight.
I have no interest in Nashville. Like, we don't even have to talk about them. Yeah. I don't think we have to talk about Nashville again unless we talk about Yossi or Saros.
Yeah. Until Forsberg comes back, they're just
no.
Florida, on the other hand, is an interesting predicament because Barkov and Sam Bennett are out tonight. Lundell is centering the top line with Tkachuk and Reinhart, which ostensibly is probably going to be still a pretty good line because anyone Tkachuk plays with ends up being a good line. Like Lundell, he started the year as the third line center, didn't have a great start, moved to wing. I think he's fine as a center. The matchup is fine. The problem here is the ownership on this top line. It's coming in over 25%. It is a 10-game slate. And then you move down to the second line. Like Duclair is up to 4K now. He's coming in with double digits. I like Verhaeghe, but like that line just feels expensive. If anything, maybe I power play stack here, but like that ownership, you look at Boston in a higher total in just a good matchup. I mean, maybe it's not as good, but like that top line for Boston, yeah, they have minutes concerns coming in around 7-8%. Top line for the Panthers with their top two centers out, 26%. So I just don't know if I want to eat that ownership tonight.
That's a pretty good point. There is just really a lot of ownership on here. And yes, like Saros isn't starting for Nashville. It's Kevin Lankinen in net, but Kevin Lankinen's had a pretty good season. You know what I mean? Like there is a drop off from Saros to Lankinen, but that's just, I think that speaks more to how good Saros has been than Lankinen, right? And we've seen Lankinen be good before. Remember he had that good half season in Chicago like 3 or 4 years ago? Goalies can do that. So like, I'm not the guy that's going to run out and be like, oh, UC Saros isn't starting. Just fire in any Florida Panthers you can find.
They released Ingram to sign Lankinen.
Pardon me?
They released Ingram so they could sign Lankinen.
Yeah. Ingram's
pretty good.
Yeah, they also put Eli Tolvanen on waivers and traded away Kevin Fiala for Michael Granlund. So,
well, I'm going to go cry.
But yeah, I think the point about power play stacking is a pretty good one because I think we talked about this on Tuesday when Florida played. But with the double defenseman on the power play, there's a lot of different things you can do with the stacking. You can do straight 5-man stack and go, Montour Ekblad on the blue line. You can just do a top line stack and add Gustav Forsling for some more 5-on-5 because Nashville's pretty bad at 5-on-5 too. You can do a Forsling Ekblad 2-man if you want. Like they don't even necessarily have to be on the same power play together because there could be enough goals here to support that. I think there are enough ways to mix and match your Floridas. Like a 20% Florida is not 20% Nashville. Like I want to make that abundantly clear. And it's not 20%, Anaheim, if Anaheim was hosting, Chicago or something. There's a difference. Florida is legitimately very, very good offensively. The problems I have is that obviously the second line won't generate near as much without Tkachuk. Eric Stahl's been getting like 17 minutes a game, moving up and down the lineup all over the place. So like maybe he even takes some time on the second line with Verhaeghe. That's a little bit of a problem. I think I would really just focus on the 3 power play forwards here. You can add Lundell if you want, but I would probably just focus on the 3 power play forwards and the 2 defensemen, because the 3 power play forwards, at least on DK, are all wingers. So people will have to do a double center stack or, some one-offs or something like that elsewhere. So I think your point about the ownership is well taken, but I would delineate between, like I said, 20% Nashville at home and 20% Florida at home. You know what I mean? I think the power play guys are still certainly fine to use here, both up front and on the blue line, and that's exactly where I would focus. You want to use an even strength line, and because they have a center instead, and use Lundell, use Luosterainen, perfectly fine. But I think this is a great power play matchup, given that Nashville's I think takes 12% more penalties than the league average, which is one of the worst marks. Florida draws a lot of power plays. It's just a really good power play spot, even without Barkov, even if the power play's worse without him. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was the point. I don't think I would full stack Florida 1 at 26%. You know what I mean? I'd leave Lundell off, add in Verhaeghe, add in defenseman. Also, Nick makes a good point in chat. Nashville is without Ekholm. They traded him, obviously. He was one of their better penalty killers. And Barry may play, but he's not anything great defensively. So their penalty kill takes another hit without Ekholm. They have Haas's boy Fabro, and they have Carrier, but Ekholm was their best penalty killing defenseman probably. So yeah, I'd mix.
I mean, not just the penalty killer too, right? Easily their best defensive defenseman at 5-on-5 as well.
Yeah, and the point I was trying to make about the ownership with full stacking is, Boston has a 4 total. They're coming in their top line around 8%. The Kings have almost a 4 total. They're not getting nearly as much ownership. I would just, I don't know if I want to play a 26% Anton Lundell, who's not on the top power play in this spot. I'd go Kachuk, Reinhart, Ekblad in a heartbeat. This is a great matchup. So yeah, there's plenty of ways to get different with higher ownership. It's fine playing chalk. There's so many ways to get different.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's move on to my Rangers here. Ottawa Senators with a 3 total heading into Madison Square Garden. The Rangers have a 3.5 total. Cam Talbot probable. Yaroslav Halak is confirmed. Rangers played last night. They won in overtime. Now Patrick Kane joins the team. The Rangers still going with 5 defensemen tonight because they can't have an emergency call-up, and Lindgren is out. So getting another 20-plus minutes out of Ben Harper and Braden Schneider tonight. They've got to be tired. Patty Kane slots in on the second line with Trocheck and Panarin. That line is going to be a high event. The Rangers with these lines, they're just going to be a high event team. I hope the Rangers goalies have their seatbelts buckled. It's going to be a bumpy ride. That being said, I don't know if Chychrun's going to be playing tonight. He wasn't at morning skate. I don't know if he's going to fly. He hasn't played in weeks. So I don't know if he's even going to be in tonight if he makes it to New York on time. That being said, with Halak and net, Rangers have 5 defensemen for the last 3 games. They played with 4 defensemen 2 games ago, getting huge minutes. Penalty kill, it's been good, but they've got to be tired. I have interest in the Senators tonight. There's no ownership on them right now. I think, that top line is fine. I think power play stacking is fine. The thing is, Rangers don't take a ton of penalties, but if they're so tired and, these Ben Harper is in the top 4 playing 20 minutes a night, I have interest in Ottawa. On the Rangers side, I would imagine Kane slots into the top power play, taking Tarasenko's spot. It's just this team's got to be gassed. Maybe they get up for this game and it's a good power play matchup. So you can take bits and pieces of the power play, but I know people are going to play Kane because he's the shiny new toy. He's playing with his old pal Panarin. They just need, they're going to recreate their magic from 2009 in Chicago or whatever. But I think I have more interest in the Senators here.
Yeah. So the top line hasn't been good with Tarasenko there. There's just no way around it. 1.1 expected goals in 85 minutes with Zibanejad and Tarasenko together. Even though, Tarasenko had 3 points last night, they're still only scoring 2.2 goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 because Tarasenko didn't score his 5-on-5 goal with Zibanejad and Kreider. Zibanejad was off the ice at the time. And no, his assist, one assist. And then the other assist, or the other goal, was in overtime. They're still not doing much at 5-on-5. The fact they're getting run over at 5-on-5. And we talked about, the Rangers' recent tough schedule yesterday on the show, and that has certainly been a very real thing. Like, they did have a run of a bunch of fairly good defensive teams in a row. Last night was the Philadelphia Flyers, and they still got ran. So I wouldn't get married to the line combinations, but I don't know if they change in game one. You know what I mean? I think they have to give it at least a few games to see where it goes, but I am starting to get a little bit concerned that there will be line changes. As far as the second line goes, now what to expect with Patrick Kane? Like, if people obviously would probably know the name, but if you're not familiar exactly with his game, he is a dual threat guy. He's a guy that does like to shoot and is still a pretty good playmaker even at his age. Like, I wrote about this for season-long fantasy hockey. The big problem, it seems, was the whole Chicago team sucks. It seems like that's the problem. And I don't mean to sound flippant when I say that, but if you look at Patrick Kane's production over the last 3 years when he was skating with Alex DeBrincat in Chicago, and then when you look when he was skating with anyone else not named Alex DeBrincat, it's night and day. So clearly there's still some juice there because the offensive numbers were still really, really good when DeBrincat was around. And now he goes to play with Panarin and Trocheck, who were pretty good offensively so far this season. So I think Panarin, Trocheck, and Kane is going to be a pretty good offensive line, and I think I would feel better about playing them than Zibanejad, Tarasenko, and Kreider. It's two things, though. One, it's a matter of how the power plays shake out because we don't know what the power play units are going to look like with Kane there. And two is a matter of the ownership because I don't think, with Kane's first game being in New York against Ottawa, I don't think we'll have a super good grasp on what the ownership is going to look like. Like, we have it at 1% ownership right now. I have a real hard time believing, that line is going to be coming in at 1 to 2%. I would be pretty surprised if it's anywhere under 5%. In fact, I'd imagine it probably gets closer to 10%. Now, I do expect that line to be pretty good offensively, like I said, because, Kane and Panarin are both still kind of dual threats. Panarin less so, but still are, and Trocheck can finish. The problem is I think they're going to be really bad defensively. Because it's not hyperbole to say, we made fun of Michael Granlund for being a terrible defensive player. Patrick Kane is worse. And it might not seem possible, but it's true. And I was trying to figure out what it might look like on that line. So I feel bad saying this. So I looked up the second line's numbers with Alexis Lafreniere on the right wing. 3.3 expected goals for, 3.4 expected goals against per 60 minutes. That's a lot of expected goals for, both for and against, sorry. So really, really high event at both ends of the ice. And I think that's what you're going to see from that line, is that they're going to be pretty good offensively, but I also think they're going to allow a lot defensively. So I don't mind that second line from Ottawa, that DeBrincat, Batherson, Pinto line. Now, I think you can leave Pinto off and just do a two-man DeBrincat, Batherson stack. Maybe add Tim Stützle if you want as a center. But, specifically DeBrincat and Batherson, I think they're going to be in a pretty good matchup against that second line for the Rangers. I think it's a good matchup for them. So Ottawa 2 for me. I mean, Ottawa 1, perfectly fine. There's no real matchup or anything big concern that I would stay away from Ottawa 1. I just think it's a better matchup for Ottawa 2, and they're over $4,000 cheaper with similarly low ownership. So for me, it's both second lines in this game, but I think I might be on your side that I would kind of rather play the Ottawa second line here than the Rangers second line.
Yeah, I think I'm on that Ottawa side too. Maybe I have some interest in some, you can one-off Panarin or you can full stack that line. There's no way that line's coming in 1-2%. It's the shiny new toy. Ottawa's not very good defensively. Could be Cam Talbot in net. It's just lining up for the Rangers to have more ownership than they should have. I'll take my chances with the Rangers penalty kill, with them being gassed with short players with Halak in net. As we mentioned off the top, we are sponsored by Prize Picks, and you can get 1 free month of Stokastic plus Platinum, which is a $120 value, and up to a $100 deposit match bonus with Prize Picks when you sign up and make a deposit. We have you click the link in the description below. I see people in our Discord were ragging Jake, are you going to post your Prize Picks so we can go 2 of 6? It's pretty funny, but it's also true. No, he's actually been pretty good. Huh?
It is a good joke.
Yeah, it is funny. Jake doesn't take the constructive criticism too. No, he does. He's just, he loves your Twitter interaction. It's a daily prop-based contest, obviously. No sharks, optimizers, mass entries. You could do a 5-player lineup. You can really do a 6-pack, and you can 10x your entry fees. You can, go cross sports. You can go, NBA tonight with NHL. This weekend you have UFC, and then we have the with that, the Stokastic membership. There's a shot prop tool that you can use to help with your Prize Picks. It helps you with betting, but if you're not in a legal state, you have the shot on goal props, goal scores, all that with Stokastic members and operators. So, a 5-pack, a 6-pack of picks, and be on your way. And then you link in the description below. You get, Stokastic plus Platinum for free so you get access to this tool, and you get a $100 deposit match bonus. So what you waiting for? Let's move on to the next one here. Pittsburgh Penguins with a 2.9 total heading into Tampa Bay. The Lightning have a 3.6 total. Tristan Jarry, Andrei Vasilevsky. Yari's confirmed. Vasilevsky is probable. Did Killorn get booted off the top power play already?
Yeah.
Do you know? He's still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Hagel's still on power play too. So that top line is still fully correlated. There is not ownership on this game, and it's confusing me. Specifically from the Tampa side, I'm not a huge believer in the Penguins defensively, not a huge believer in Tristan Jarry. The Tampa hasn't been too high in the top stack percentages either. I kind of like the Cirelli Stamkos line. I guess minutes are a concern here. I just, with the total, not too much ownership. What am I missing here?
I don't know what everybody else isn't seeing either, because that Tampa top line, the problem with the Tampa top line basically for like 2 months now is like they'll absolutely torch teams for like 5 or 6 days and then go cold for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then torch teams for like 5 or 6 days and then go cold for like, but they're still generating a lot of offense the entire time. So, DFS comes down to percentages and shooting percentages and save percentages regardless, but it seems even more extreme in their case for whatever reason. But at least there are peaks where there are valleys. Dallas and Minnesota of late, it's just been a whole bunch of valleys. So at least Tampa's still scoring every once in a while. Like in the month of February, they generated 3.8 expected goals for per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. That's like 50% higher than the league average. Problem was they shot 4.5%, where the league average is nearly double that. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Hagel moving down to power play 2 kind of sucks, but like he wasn't super reliant on power play production this year anyway. Like I was looking earlier, less than a quarter of his points have come on the power play. I don't really worry about it until we get like 30% plus. So like under 25%, it's not that big of a deal for me. It still is a little bit of a deal because he is, relatively expensive. He's $5,800, and you definitely do want a guy on the power play if you're paying $5,800. But they're generating a lot. They're going to go up against that Pittsburgh second line, the Malkin line, which, over the last few weeks, 3.1 expected goals against, 3.5 actual goals against, a 5-on-5. They're giving up a lot defensively. So I really do like Tampa 1 here. Doesn't seem like a lot of people are going to be in on them. I think if you want to save money and take off Hagel and put on Killorn, like that's perfectly fine, because it's just a power play stack. And Pittsburgh's penalty kill is like, it's just atrocious. It's been really bad for a couple months now. So I really do like, like a point Kucherov Killorn. you want to get super expensive, go Point Kucherov, Stamkos, or something like that. I think taking advantage of low ownership on Tampa Bay here in what is a pretty good power play matchup for them is kind of the right route to take here. So I really do I like Tampa 1 more. Tampa 2, like they're starting to struggle offensively a little bit, and I think it might be Killorn's fault. Like I feel bad saying that, but he's like 34, falling off for a few years now as it is anyway. So they, where they haven't been generating a ton lately, and the top line has, like I'll go to the top line, but I think the entire top 6 for Tampa is just fine here. On the Pittsburgh side, it's the same thing, like generating a lot. The Pittsburgh top line over the last 3 weeks, 4.4 expected goals for per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Like I think that's like 60% higher than league average. The Pittsburgh second line over the last 3 weeks, 5 expected goals for, double the league average, but shooting under 8%. Like these are the problems, right? It's like if they can actually convert on the good chances that they're getting, they'd be filling in the net, but they're not. So same thing I think here is I would probably avoid the Pittsburgh top line actually, because that Cirelli line has really, as much as they're struggling offensively, they're really tightening things down defensively. As Cirelli, I think he's at like game 35 or something like that now. He probably needed about 20 games to really get up to speed after such a long layoff because of his injury. So I think I like the Pittsburgh second line here. Like Zucker, Malkin, and Rust have been generating a lot. Tampa Bay's penalty kill has been bad, but they don't take a ton of penalties. And Pittsburgh's power play has been really, really, let's say underwhelming for a month or so now. So, I think if you don't want a full stack Zucker, Malkin, Rust, that's fine. But I don't think they're in a bad matchup against Tampa 1. They've been generating a lot lately. They're not coming in with, any ownership, 0.3%. Despite 2% top 2 probability. I don't mind Pittsburgh 2 here. So Tampa 1/Tampa power play, Pittsburgh 2 for me out of this game.
Yeah, I like this game a lot more than I like the Rangers Senators game, that's for sure. Let's move on to the next one. Dallas Stars with a 3.6 total heading into Chicago. The Blackhawks have a 2.5 total. Stars played last night with Ottinger. I think it could be the Stars Matt Murray starting tonight. Peter Mrazek is confirmed. Here we are with Dallas 1 again. Pavelski has been bad. Mason Marchment has been bad on the third line. This is like if they're going to get back on track, this is the matchup.
I mean, we just saw the Anaheim Ducks speed bag Chicago, right? So theoretically, yes, Dallas should speed bag Chicago here. I've been playing DFS long enough to know how this goes when the Dallas Stars are in an absolutely complete smash spot, and they don't.
At least they're not chalk tonight.
That's great. I'm not even going to talk about Chicago. Like, if you want to one off Max Domi or something, like, go ahead. But like, Dallas's penalty kill is elite, and one of the very few things Chicago has been able to do this year is have a decent power play. Forget it. So on the Dallas side, in the month of February, 3.4 expected goals for, like, that's really good. But shooting 6.8% is the problem, like Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay that we just talked about. They're just not converting. To your point about Joe Pavelski and Mason Marchment, I tweeted about this earlier today. Over Pavelski's last 17 games and Marchment's last 16 games, so 33 games combined between them, 0 goals, 11 assists, and under 2 shots per game. They're just not doing anything. And it's not like they're getting snake bit or something. Like, they are getting snake bit to an extent. You'd expect a couple goals from them in that span, but nothing that would really make them notable for DFS. And that's kind of the problem here, is that those two guys are just complete black holes offensively and have been for, a month and a half now. And that takes 2 out of the 3 lines basically out of play if you don't want to use them, right? So I think the Dallas top line is perfectly acceptable to use here. Like I said, they have been generating. It is ostensibly a good power play spot, but the Chicago penalty kill, I was looking, their last 20 games, basically top 5 in the league. I don't know why. And they traded Jack Johnson, who had been one of their worst penalty killers. So maybe there's something to it.
Caleb Jones, baby.
But, could be just be a small sample thing. But here, like, they're coming with a lot of good leverage, and that's perfectly fine. And I'm not going to begrudge anybody playing Dallas 1 tonight, but they're right there with Tampa, right? In price. And and Tampa's coming in with much lower ownership because they're not playing the Chicago Blackhawks. Like, I think I'd rather take the chance and just go play Tampa, right? So that's kind of my problem with Dallas here tonight is I think there are other lines at that price range. Like, I would rather go play Tampa. I would rather play, probably the Ottawa top line. I would rather play, certainly Boston. And they're coming in basically with the same ownership as Boston. So where there are other spots I would rather play, I'm not personally in on Dallas. Obviously, it's a great spot for them, but I think there are reasons not to play them. And then, you move down the lineup, Seguin, Delandria, Mason Marchment, 2.5 expected goals for 2 actual goals. Like, they're not generating a whole lot. Then you get to the next line with the Donoff and Ben and those guys. They're coming in with reasonable ownership. So if you want a 2-man, like Ben, I think Ben Johnston, Ben Dodonov, something like that is where I would go on the Dallas side here. I wouldn't go with the big guns.
Yeah, I've been leaning towards, I'm a big Wyatt Johnson guy just because that name is just, that's such a Texas name. You know what I mean? Like, he couldn't be playing for the Columbus Blue Jackets. It had to be the Dallas Stars. Wyatt. Anyway, yeah. If you want to play Dallas 1 here tonight, it's fine. It's just like, we've seen this story before. But again, it is DFS. Anything can happen one night. So yeah. Let's talk about the Maple Leafs here. Tough 20 hours for those Maple Leafs. Toronto Maple Leafs with a 3.2 total heading into Calgary. The Flames have a 3.4 total. Joseph Woll, Jacob Markstrom, confirmed. Did Ryan O'Reilly get moved down to the third line last night?
Yeah.
Yeah. They traded their best third liner. Now they need Ryan O'Reilly to go down there to help. Yeah.
I love this team.
Yeah. And you know where that third liner is playing now? He's playing with Bo Horvat. Maybe shouldn't have traded. Anyway, this is a brutal matchup.
Oh my god.
This is a brutal matchup for the Leafs. The only thing is Jacob Markstrom's in that, who's had a god-awful season. Like last year, he was probably a top 5 goaltender in the league. This year, can't stop a nosebleed. So, like, yeah, maybe you go back to Matthews here because he's 2%. Like, anytime Matthews is like 10% or under, it's worrisome. But like, his minutes are down. He played 17 minutes the other night, 17, 18. He hasn't been shooting the puck a bunch. Him and Marner and Bunting historically have very good numbers together, but they're going to get that Coleman Backlund Mangiapane matchup, which is basically the new Joel Eriksson Ekline. That line just shuts everything down. So then you're going to Tavares, Nylander, O'Reilly, and O'Reilly had to move down to the third line because, surprise, surprise, Alex Kerfoot couldn't do crap. So then this isn't a good power play matchup either. Calgary has a good penalty kill, so 3.2 total. Kind of out on the Leafs here. I'm on the Flames. I like them. They're not getting too much ownership. That Coleman Backlund Mangiapane line. The Huberdeau Peltier Kadri line getting about 7-8%, which is a little bit more than I want, but their price is very, very good. They got 2 guys on the top power play. Peltier has looked pretty good. You want to go down to Toffoli, Lindholm, Dubé, like against that Leafs third line. They had a 12.5% expected goals for last night against the Oilers bottom 6. So like if there's a time to go to Lindholm, Toffoli, Dubé, it's now.
I love this team so much. Yes. Not much ownership on Austin Matthews, so perfectly fine to use him tonight as a leverage play, but you're banking on them scoring extremely efficiently because, as you outlined, that Calgary third line, the shutdown line with Backlund, Coleman, Mangiapane, like, it's not just us saying it. You just look at the numbers. Their last 120 minutes together, 1.5 expected goals against per 60 minutes, 1 actual goals against. That line this year, that Flames line, has allowed 5 goals in 315 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time. That's if you want to break that down to about 13 minutes a game, that's roughly 1 goal every 22 or 23 games that they're allowing. That's the matchup that the Matthews line is going into tonight. So, yeah, the Matthews line could generate 6 shots and score 4 goals on Jacob Markstrom easily. Like, that's just how bad Markstrom has been this year. And that's the reason why I would play Toronto's, because they're not going to have any ownership. And the goaltending for Calgary has been absolutely horrific. But it is a really bad 5-on-5 matchup. And it's not even a good power play matchup, because the Calgary penalty kill has generally been great, other than when their goalies have floundered. It's a pretty bad matchup for that top line. So I'm out on Toronto 1. Like I said, if you want to play him at low ownership against a bad goalie, now that I say that out loud, I'm like, maybe I should play them. But at low ownership, low ownership against a bad goalie, they're fine to play. I just think it's a terrible matchup otherwise. The Toronto second line is interesting because they only moved Ryan O'Reilly to the third line in the third period of that game. Again, they did so because they traded away their best bottom 6 player for a third-round draft pick intentionally. And if they move Kelly Yarncroc up to that second line, like Yarncroc and Nylander have actually played pretty well together this year. Don't forget, when Yarncroc was playing with Tavares earlier this season, like a couple months ago, or a month ago even, it was Marner that was there. Sorry, it wasn't Nylander. And Yarncroc and Nylander have actually played a fair bit on the third line this year, and they did really well with Pierre Engvall, 4.2 expected goals for, 2.7 actual goals for. I think that Toronto second line could be fairly good, and you still get 2 guys on the top power play unit, and you get to avoid the Backlund Coleman Mangiapane matchup. And there's not much ownership on them anyway. So I think it's, if anything, from the Toronto side, it's Toronto 2. On the Calgary side, it's the top line, Toffoli, Dubé, and Lindholm. And it's because they're not going to get the Matthews matchup. They're going to get the second and third line matchups. Hopefully a bunch of third line matchups. They won't, but hopefully. They're not coming in with a lot of ownership. Like, the problem of them not generating a lot of quality is that they do generate a lot of quantity. And if they have a game where, they get a couple lucky bounces or something like that, they generate so much quality that they don't need 22 minutes of ice time to score like 3 goals or something like that, right? So I don't mind Calgary 1 here. Toffoli, Lindholm, Dubé, a little bit more, like, they're more expensive than the second line, but the trade-off is less ownership. But I think it's Calgary 1, Toronto 2 for me. But I'll be honest, I'm not super excited about the Leafs here.
Yeah, me either. And maybe I'll get dragged on Twitter as a Leafs hater. It's just funny because Leafs Twitter just gives me hope for the world every day. This is the greatest thing ever. But yeah, I do like that. Like you said, Toffoli, Lindholm, Dubé is quantity over quality, but quantity is what you need for DFS. So yeah, there are 130 of you in here. Please smash that like button. It helps us out. Not as much as you clicking the link in the description, though, and getting a 4-week Stokastic membership for 50% off, which is $29.98. Original price is around $60. And it'll give you access to everything NHL that we have. Projections, ownership, lineup builder, rankings, and our expert Discord, where we have a very lovely community. Lots of people willing to help, more than just Cliffy, Jake, and myself. There are a lot of sharp minds in there. More than willing. If you have questions, just ask. We will answer them. 50% off for a month will take you into April. Obviously, it's the 2nd day of March. You'll get into April. There's also a weekly option there. It'll get you to next Thursday's slate. There is the lineup builder, where Cliffy is building a DraftKings lineup. We had some questions about building a FanDuel lineup. We won't get to that today just because we still have 3 games to get through, but on a shorter slate, we will most definitely build some FanDuel lineups for you as well.
Yeah,
Let's see what Cliffy is doing.
Yeah, I started with Tampa Power Play, sorry. I'm thinking I'm going to put in Lankinen. He's going to face a ton of shots here tonight. So Lankinen, Carrier, goalie, defenseman. I'm just thinking about what the secondary stack's going to be, so we can carry on to the next game. I'm just going to keep it in the back of my mind.
Yeah. Cool for me. Let's move on to the next one. The Minnesota Wild with a 3.3 total. Heading into Vancouver, the Canucks have a 2.7 total. Marc-Andre Fleury, Thatcher Demko confirmed. Thatcher Demko looked good until he didn't the other night. First game back from a long injury. Maybe he's feeling a little bit better. Marcus Foligno is out tonight. Jonas Brodin is in. I don't know if Marcus Johansson or is he in or out?
Yeah, he's in. He's in, and he's on Boldy's line.
Wow. Going from Foligno to Marcus Johansson, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. It is still a pig.
Even Avery agrees.
Yeah. We have a $5 super chat related to this game from our pal Big Turk. Cliffy, thoughts on a one-off Hronik as Vancouver pushes for the playoffs?
In Vancouver's valued bid to get to the postseason, I'm afraid I'd have to say I wouldn't be playing Filip Hronik tonight. Too much of his value in Detroit has come from the power play, and he's not going to get that power play time in Vancouver. So a lot of his offensive value is about to dry up real quick. So no, but we are still cheering on for the Canucks to grab that second wild card spot. Come on, boys. I know you can do it.
Yeah. And I don't understand what the Canucks are doing. With that Hronik trade, they're already over the cap for next year. They're going to trade Brock Besser for, like, I don't know, an Arby's gift card just to get cap compliant. Like, they don't want to retain salary, but no one's interested for good reason. But anyway, to this game here, this is a pretty good matchup for Minnesota. Now, line matching here is kind of important because Kuzmenko, Beauvillier, Pettersson have actually been okay defensively. The thing is, Demko's still back. You know, he had his first game back not too long ago. Their penalty kill is bad. That top line for Minnesota with Hartman there starting to pick it up. Kaprizov is, he's having a great season. That second line with Eriksson Ek, Boldy without Foligno, I know Marcus Johansson's there. It is an upgrade from Foligno offensively.
Is it?
Albeit a minor one. Like, Foligno just absolutely torpedoed the line. Like, at least Marcus Johansson knows how to shoot the puck. I don't know if Foligno knows how to shoot the puck. Maybe. But I think if anything, it's going to be both top lines from this game. But line matching, very important for at least, who the Canucks line is going to go into.
Yeah. One thing I will say is that in their last home game, they did use the Pettersson line a fair bit against Boston when Boston was in town. So I suspect that will be the matchup again here tonight, is that Vancouver is going to go up against Minnesota's top line. And honestly, that's probably best for them. Yeah. Because that Eriksson Ek, Boldy line, like, they have been pretty bad offensively, but they're still really good defensively. And the third line is still pretty good defensively. The top line isn't bad defensively or anything like that, but they're league average, and league average for Minnesota is bad. So it's not a terrible matchup for the Vancouver top line. You spoke to how good they've been defensively. The offensive numbers are really standing out. 3.5 expected goals for 90-plus minutes together. 3.5 expected goals for per 60 minutes in 90-plus minutes together. 4.7 actual goals for. All on the top power play unit, all playing like 19 to 23 minutes over the last handful of games. And here's the quirk, is that Minnesota's penalty kill has generally been good this year, but over their last 20 games, the penalty kill save percentage is .945. I was just looking earlier, the league median is about .870. To 945 would be like Igor Shesterkin at 5-on-5 last season. To do that for 20 games on the penalty kill screams regression at some point, and Vancouver has a pretty good power play.
Very power play reliant.
Right. So it seems like this might not be a terrible spot for Vancouver's power play to get right. Problem is like the ownership is kind of high. I thought it would be lower than 6%. It's still fine to play. It's just a little bit high. Like I'm not. It's the one thing that made me less excited about playing Vancouver.
I'd rather play the Senators, I think.
Yeah, exactly. On the other side, like I was making those faces about Foligno and Johansson because I think Johansson's just bad. Like I'm sorry,
he is, but yeah.
The last 3 seasons, he's in the fifth percentile for points per minute at 5-on-5, as in 95% of NHL forwards produce better than him over the last 3 years. Is he better than Foligno? I don't know. I don't think so. And
that's, yeah.
And if it's even a toss-up, then it's not an improvement, right? So, like, I'm not super excited about that Minnesota second line. Like, they're fine to play. Honestly, I think I would rather just go play the top line. I know they're like $6,000 more expensive or whatever, so it's a completely different stack. But I would rather have the best player playing with 2 other good players that will play a ton of minutes regardless of what the 5-on-5 matchups, because Vancouver's penalty kill is just that bad. So both top lines for me in this game.
Yeah, I kind of agree there. We'll have to wait and see on Marcus Johansson. Maybe Gustav Nyquist comes back and plays there. Another brilliant trade there by the Wild. Let's move on to the Montreal Canadiens with a 2.6 total heading into Los Angeles. The Kings have a 3.9 total. Jake Allen, Phoenix Copley confirmed. Vladislav Gavrikov is going to play tonight, they said. They're giving Joonas Korpisalo a couple more days to get acclimated. 3.9 total here for the Kings. Not a lot of ownership here. Not as much as I expected for a late hammer. I guess the power play units are a bit wonky, but like Kopitar is coming off a 4-goal game, which is, you're not going to expect Kopitar to score four goals every game, but he's 5,900 top power play in a good power play spot. He's coming in projected at 5%. The second line of Danault, Arvidsson, Fiala has more ownership. Like they're in the double digits, and I think that's fine. Like that line is very good. So yeah, if that line's gonna be double digits and Kopitar and Kempe are gonna be 5-6%, I think it comes up. But if they're around that, I don't see why I won't play Kings 1 here.
Yeah, I was looking at Kings 1 myself for a stack here tonight because 2 reasons. One, they're playing fairly well. Like just in the month of February, 2.6 expected goals for, 2 against. Like they're really shutting down the opposition, not generating a ton. But 4.3 goals, like they're shooting 13%. But even if you cut that off by like a quarter, they're still scoring well over 3 goals per 60 minutes. Like I'm not that worried about their generation. And they're going to get the second line matchup. Like whatever we might think of Suzuki and Hoffman, like Suzuki and Hoffman do have passable defensive numbers together this year, especially considering the team that they're playing for. But Anderson and Drouin have just been getting filled in almost game after game. Defensively, 4 expected goals against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 with those 2 on the ice. Only 41% of the shot share. So Kings top line getting that matchup. I think it's LA1 that I like in this matchup pretty easily. And they're generally speaking, one of my favorite stacks on this slate. One problem with the Kings top line for a long time was a bad power play. Like their top power play unit with Kopitar and Kempe and those guys was really, really bad. Since December 1st, they're over 10 goals per 60 minutes while on the power play, which is not super elite, but definitely way above average, like considerably above average, like a full standard deviation. So Kings 1 for me, nothing on the Montreal side besides one-offs. One-off Hoffman, one-off Anderson, those guys. That's not no, I'm passing on the Habs.
Yeah, I agree there. We have a $5 super chat from Glenn Smith, $5 Canadian. Not sure how the Canadian dollar is doing against the American dollar. Nickel and diming here, but no, I'm just kidding with you. Good cheap filler line tonight. How cheap you looking? There are a couple here tonight, even one in the next game. But who you liking is the cheap filler?
Like you said, it depends how cheap you want to go. I don't really hate the Calgary Backlund line. They're about 12K, coming a little bit overowned, but I think they're fine. The Jamie Benn line from Dallas as well. We talked about that line being fairly low owned. Don't mind them for a super cheap filler stack either. That's basically about it that I really like. Everything else is just coming in way too high owned. So I'll say, definitely the Dallas depth. Calgary 3, I think, is perfectly fine. I think Seattle is perfectly fine as well. Like that Schwartz, no, not Schwartz. Sorry, the Tolvin and Gord 2-man. I think that's perfectly fine. That's something like that is where I would go. Seattle, Dallas, Dallas 2, like the Ben line. That's basically where I am. There's not a whole lot I like for super cheap fillers.
Ownership agnostic. I do like the Buchnevich, Thomas, Kapanen line, but they're coming in way over owned. And let's talk about that game. St. Louis Blues, the 3.1 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks have a 3.3 total somehow. Tomas Greiss, maybe that's how, and James Reimer are confirmed. The Sharks traded Michael Esimont for Vladislav Nemestikov yesterday. Nemestikov not going to be with the team. Nick Bonino moves up to the top line with Couture and Barabanov. Second line of Hertl, Zetterlund, and Andreas Janssen. Also don't mind them as a filler, but they're also coming in over-owned. Ownership agnostic. It's the Buchnevich Thomas line and the Hertl Zetterlund line. I guess they're fine because they're playing each other, but I don't want to play double-digit Sharks or Blues tonight, really.
Yeah, I'm out on the Hertl line. Actually, I'm in more on Couture, Bonino, and Barabanov. The only reason being they're perfectly correlated on the power play. Not a great power play matchup because St. Louis doesn't take a lot of penalties, and the penalty kill has actually been getting better basically since early December. But they are perfectly correlated on the power play, and it's 13,100. And they're, Couture is going to play like 18, 19 minutes. Barabanov's going to play like 18 minutes. So, fully correlated top line, 13,100 at home with a 3.3 total. That's where I'm going. On the St. Louis side, this is a disaster. It's a complete disaster. There's nothing I want to play. And I can't believe that because it's the San Jose Sharks. But Kyrou and Shen have played 300 minutes together this year, 2.1 expected goals for, 2.7 actual goals. 2.7 actual goals for is 7% better than league average. It's basically nothing. St. Louis second line, at least they're scoring 3.2 goals for per 60 minutes. Thomas Buchnevich. So it'd be Thomas Buchnevich and Kapanen, but they're coming in with a ton of ownership. So if you want to just do Buchnevich and Thomas, I think that's fine. You can 3-man stack, but it is the Buchnevich, Thomas, Kapanen line I like the best. But I think the line I like the best in this game is Couture, Barabanov, and Bonino. Yeah,
that late hammer is just an absolute festival, as we like to say. It's just I guess they're fine. It's just ownership, just chills the bones. Coming up after us, the Odds Shop with A10 and Lofty at 4 p.m. on the Odds Shopper channel to go over the best bets tonight using the premium Odds Shopper tools. Let's talk about those fellows who live behind the blue line. Maybe we'll actually get a Predators shout out for the blue liner here. There actually might be a couple playable Predators defensemen tonight. Who are you liking?
I'll start with the expensive guys. The top of the list for me are Sergachev, Montour, and Erik Karlsson. Now, if you want to play 9,200 Roman Josi, I have no problem doing that because the offense is going to have to run through him now. Not that it didn't before, but it really is going to have to go through him now. I'm just paying 9,200 for a defenseman feels super expensive. So for me, it'd be probably Karlsson, Montour, or Sergachev. For the mid-price guys, there aren't a ton that I'm in love with. I like Gustav Forsling. Jake Wallman, I'll play him almost any night. I would die for Jake Wallman, and I kind of mean that. Noah Hannafin as well. Drew Doughty, if you want to take advantage of a bad Montreal penalty kill, but I don't feel like he's not at the top of my list for the mid-price range. Let's put it that way. If you want to go super cheap, Matthias Samuelsson with no Rasmus Dahlin for Buffalo. Owen Power is going to play a lot for them, but I think I'd rather just save a little bit of money on Samuelsson. Alex Carrier is probably going to play around 19 minutes for Nashville on the blue line. Oli Mata, with Detroit trading Philip Hronik, they're going to have to give somebody more minutes, and I'm very much hoping it's not Ben Sherratt. So Oli Mata for cheap. Braden Schneider from the Rangers. The Rangers are only playing 5 defensemen here tonight, so I think like every single Rangers defenseman is in play one way or another. Yeah. And I'll mention Chris Tana from Calgary and Kalen Addison from Minnesota if you want to take advantage of a really bad Vancouver penalty kill.
Yep. That about sums it up there. Goalie is an interesting question here tonight. There's not one that really is like, yep, I'm going to play this guy tonight. So who you like? I mean, I think we like a couple of the same guys, but who you liking here?
Yeah, I mean, I had Saros circled because of the shot volume thing. I think Kevin Lankin is still fine to play. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Same thing with Jake Allen. I mean, we just saw him have a pretty good game if he plays tonight for Montreal. I mean, it doesn't matter for me who plays for Montreal going up against the Kings. Could be a good high volume matchup for Montreal and for Allen. Andre Vasilevsky at home against Pittsburgh. We went through Pittsburgh's scoring problem, like shooting percentage problems. And if those don't turn around, he could put up. He's the 8K plus goalie that I don't mind playing here tonight is Vasilevsky. And I also mentioned Halak. I'm not sure why I was feeling Halak today, but no, Ottawa is another team that has had problems scoring, and Halak's actually been pretty good on the penalty kill this year, which has been Shesterkin's problem. So I don't mind Halak either.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for some spend up options here, and it's just like outside of Vasilevsky, like I guess Marc-Andre Fleury. He's not even that expensive. Like Vasilevsky, obviously 8,100. Halak is 8K. Bobrovsky 8K. Like those guys just don't inspire. Like Swayman 8,300. Like these guys just don't inspire confidence. So I think I'm spending down here on goalie tonight, and spending down is not great either. So I don't know. Goalie's a fun one. I mean, goalie's always an absolute crapshoot, but tonight just feels extra crappy and extra shooty. So who you liking as your hat trick pick?
Just talked about him very recently, and he had a hat trick not that long ago, I think. Maybe a couple weeks. Hopefully he gets another one. Adrian Kempe from Los Angeles.
Nice. I'm picking against my boys here tonight. Going Drake Batherson.
Ooh, you love the Drake. We love the Drake.
We love the Drake.
I mean, do we? I mean, I don't know. Shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But maybe
anyway,
3 goals here tonight.
Yeah. Anyway, he's either going to have like 3 goals or just like 2 shots and go on a block. That's usually how it happens with Drake Batherson. But anyway, we will be back next week at some point, Monday or Tuesday. I haven't seen the schedule yet.
Monday.
Yeah, I barely know what day it is today. So make sure to click those links in the description. Smash that thumbs up on the way out. If you have any questions, we'll see you in Discord tonight. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck tonight, everyone. Let's go win some money.